Imagine an artist. For 40 days, she sat in front of a blank canvas. Same studio, same chair, same morning light, no music, no references, no frantic sketches. She simply observed the canvas with a calm that bordered on absurd. Her colleagues whispered that she had lost her inspiration. Her family worried about her apparent inertia. But on the 41st day, without warning, without effort, without even picking up the brush, she received an email. A renowned international gallery she had dreamed of exhibiting with for a decade offered her a solo show. The proposal was inexplicable, almost too easy, but it wasn't a coincidence. What no one saw was that during those 40 days, the artist wasn't doing nothing. She was actually doing the deepest work of all. She was dismantling the frequency of struggle that for years had blocked her creative genius. She was releasing the identity of the hard-working artist, the one who believed that more hours in the studio equaled more brilliance, that suffering was a prerequisite for art. She was no longer presenting herself to the universe as a candidate. She was finally silent enough to hear her own inner masterpiece. Because here is the truth that productivity culture refuses to tell us. The quantum field, the energetic matrix that connects all things, is not responding to what you do. It responds to something infinitely more subtle and exponentially more powerful: who you are being. And the great majority of people spend their entire lives without realizing this. That's why they burn out in cycles of exhaustion. That's why they repeat the same financial and emotional dramas. That's why they follow all the rules, check every item off their to-do list, yet still feel disconnected, frustrated, and somehow invisible to the very life they wish to create. They are fluent in the language of effort, but the universe speaks only the language of frequency. And here is the plot twist that changes the game. It's not just any frequency. It's the signal you emit when no one is looking, when you're not trying to manifest anything, when you're not reciting affirmations in the mirror or filling out your gratitude journal. It is your raw, unfiltered, energetic signature in the silence of your being. That is the moment the universe actually tilts its head to listen. In quantum physics, this is not philosophy. It's a principle called coherence. Your body is a biological transmission system. Your thoughts generate electrical impulses in the brain. Your heart generates a magnetic field thousands times stronger than the brain's. Together, they create an electromagnetic signature, a vibrational ID that constantly transmits to the field. And what does it transmit? Not your desires, not your words. It transmits your state of being. So here's the part that can feel uncomfortable. You might be taking all the correct actions while unconsciously transmitting the frequency of, "This will never work for me." You might be visualizing the house of your dreams in vivid detail while your nervous system radiates the energy of insecurity and lack. You might be affirming your wealth while your body is still stuck in inherited survival patterns. And this is the invisible contradiction that prevents new realities from materializing. This isn't about guilt, it's about precision awareness. Because once you understand what the field actually listens to, you stop wasting your life force trying to persuade it with sweat and effort. You begin to communicate in the only language it understands: embodiment. That artist who sat in silence was not being lazy. She was recalibrating. She was remembering what most of us forget in the noise of trying to make life happen. You are not here to fight for alignment. You are here to return to it. And that return cannot be forced. It can only be felt. The great irony is that most people try to manifest using a language the field cannot understand. They use logic, strategies, hurry, rituals, but the field is not logical. It is vibrational. It does not decode what you do. It mirrors the energy from which you do it. So let me ask you a question. If you stopped all external effort today, if you stopped chasing, trying, proving, would your energy alone be magnetic enough to attract your future toward you? This is the invisible truth we will unravel together. Because it's not about doing nothing. It's about becoming someone who no longer vibrates from lack. Someone who no longer shows up to manifestation as a beggar. Someone who no longer asks the field to deliver, but becomes a version of themselves that the field cannot possibly ignore. By the end of this journey, you will no longer guess why certain things aren't materializing. You will know exactly what signal you were sending and how to transform it from static into a symphony. But for that, we need to go deeper. In the next part, we will reveal why even the most well-intentioned people fail to materialize new realities. You will learn about the quantum miscommunication that occurs between your intentions and your energetic field, and how to realign this communication not with more effort, but with emotional congruence. Because the field is already listening, just not to what you thought. And when you hear what it hears, everything begins to change. You've probably felt this before, that strange moment when externally everything seems in place. You're following the plan, disciplined, positive, focused, but inside, something is off. There is a subtle tension, a quiet resistance, almost as if your own body does not believe the story your mind is telling. That is the exact moment the quantum field tunes in, not to your action plan, not to your words, but to that unconscious, visceral, energetic transmission. This is where everything either makes sense or collapses, because most people believe the universe operates like a moral entity, rewarding good behavior, effort, and discipline. But the quantum field is not moral, it's not paternal, it is mathematical. It calculates coherence, it mirrors resonance, it responds to the signal, period. There is no strategy that can cheat physics, and that signal is always emitted in the now. In neuroscience and quantum biology, this phenomenon is known as state-dependent encoding. Your body literally stores memories, traumas, and expectations based on the emotional frequencies you've rehearsed over time. This means that even if your conscious mind is visualizing success and abundance, if your body has been trained to emotionally rehearse anxiety and scarcity, the quantum field will inevitably echo scarcity back to you, not to punish you, but to mirror you. Let's simplify. Imagine you enter a room holding a tuning fork vibrating at 440 Hz. Across the room is another tuning fork perfectly tuned to the same frequency. Without anyone touching them, without any external force, the second tuning fork will begin to vibrate and emit sound. That isn't magic, it's resonance. Manifestation operates exactly under the same principle. The field does not grant desires based on merit. It responds to coherence. When your intention, the thought, your emotion, the feeling, and your embodiment, the sensation in the body, align perfectly, you become a coherent transmission tower. And everything in the universe aligned with that frequency begins to move toward you. Not because you're asking, but because you're vibrating. But here lies the paradox. The moment you try to be in a high frequency, you've already lost it. Because trying implies effort, and effort is a form of resistance. Wanting implies absence. Proving implies insecurity. And the field picks this dissonance instantly. That's why so many people hit a plateau in their development. They work hard to manifest from the mind, while their body is still carrying the frequencies of fear, separation, and unworthiness. Their words say one thing, but their electromagnetic field, that invisible transmission emanating from the body, tells a completely different story. Let's make it tangible. You write in your journal every morning, "I am prosperous. I am a magnet for opportunities." But while writing, you feel a tightness in your chest. You're secretly checking your bank account, hoping something external will prove the practice is working. That tension, that anxious expectation, That is your real signal. That is what the field hears. Because while the conscious mind speaks in words, the subconscious mind, which neuroscientists say runs 95% of your day, speaks only emotion. And emotion is magnetic. Dr. Joe Dispenza often says that an elevated emotion paired with a clear intention is the formula for creation. But most people focus only on intention. They skip the emotional rehearsal. They declare their desires while vibrating emotionally exactly the opposite. It's like dialing the correct phone number but whispering into a dead receiver. Now here's where it becomes truly quantum. The field does not understand future tense. There is no "I will be" or "I will have" in the language of energy. The field reflects the state of now. Therefore, if you are perpetually in the state of becoming, you never arrive at being. If you are always in the process of achieving, you are constantly transmitting the frequency of not yet, and the universe dutifully keeps it at a distance, perfectly mirroring your signal. But there's more. Many people unconsciously use manifestation as a performance to feel safe. They don't believe they are worthy of love or success without an external achievement, so they chase results to feel good, not realizing that the very chase radiates the frequency of lack. It's the validation trap. The quantum field does not respond to your effort. It responds to your energetic posture. And if your posture is built on trying, grasping, deserving, or proving, you paradoxically push away what you desire. So what's the solution? Shift from supplicant to transmitter. Stop proving and start radiating. Stop acting as if and start embodying as is. Because the most powerful manifester is not the one who knows the most techniques. It's the one who needs the fewest. Why? Because their frequency speaks louder than their actions. Their coherence collapses timelines, and the universe cannot help but respond. In the next part, we'll explore what identity has to do with all of this. You'll see how your self-concept, the emotional blueprint you carry of yourself, is actually the master code to which the field most responds. And we'll begin gently dissolving the identity that continues to transmit struggle even when your intentions are pure. Because once you change the signal, the field has no choice but to echo it back. There is a question most people on a self-development journey never stop to ask. Who are you before you start trying to manifest? Not what you want, not what you're visualizing, but who you have unconsciously decided you are. This subtle, often invisible identity is the source code the quantum field responds to. Not your dreams, not your affirmations, but the fundamental energetic assumption of self that you carry into every room, every ritual, every breath. This is where manifestation stops being about magic and becomes about energetic architecture, because your frequency is not built during your 30-minute visualization sessions. It is built and reinforced by your nervous system, by the stories you silently repeat to yourself, by the emotional cycles you rehearse daily, and most importantly, by the way you expect life to respond to you before it even does. This is what we call your vibrational identity, and it is more powerful than any technique you could ever learn. Let me show you how this works in practice. You can wake up at 5 a.m., light incense, meditate for an hour, and repeat, "I am worthy of love," 108 times. But if the fundamental identity your body carries is that of someone who has always been rejected, someone who must fight to be seen, someone who has never felt safe enough to relax, then your real signal will be encoded with contraction, not coherence. You will be doing all the right things from the identity of someone still trying to become, not someone who already is. This is the silent saboteur of manifestation, an identity programmed for effort, trying to speak the language of ease. And the field, which understands only vibration, cannot translate this contradiction. It does not reflect what you do, it reflects who you are. So what shapes this identity?
From a quantum perspective, identity is not just psychological, it is vibrational and biochemical. Every thought you have, especially when paired with strong emotion or repeated often, creates and strengthens a neural pathway in your brain. Over time, this neurochemical loop becomes familiar, and your brain, designed for efficiency, will always seek the known path. This creates what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls the predictable familiar past, a state in which your future becomes just an unconscious repetition of your past. But identity is not only in the mind, it is in the body. It is somatic. It lives in the depth of your breath, in your posture, in the micro contractions that occur when you hear criticism. Your body remembers who you have been, and if you do not consciously interrupt this loop, you end up manifesting not what you desire, but what you are used to being. This is why high vibration practices sometimes stop working, not because the practices fail, but because they are being executed from an old identity. It's like trying to install cutting-edge software on a computer that still runs a 20-year-old operating system. The signal fails. The system cannot accept the command. So how do we change this? First, you must become a master observer of the moment you slip back into the old self, the one who doubts, who forces, who looks for external signs instead of radiating inner certainty.
Most people don't even notice this shift. It's subtle. It's a sigh of resignation. It's a shrug. It's a hesitation before speaking. These micro-expressions are the real indicators, clues that you've re-entered an identity your new reality cannot attach to. Because here is the paradox. Your new timeline cannot attach to your old self. And the quantum field knows this. That's why it seems to resist delivering new results to those still embodying expired identities. It's not punishment, it's a law of preservation. The field protects coherence. So what's the solution? You don't change identity by forcing new beliefs over old ones. You become someone new by embodying a new frequency so consistently that it stops being an act and becomes your nature. This is not fake it till you make it. It is vibrational rehearsal. It is act as if until it becomes as is. Start in silence, not to attract, but to observe. Feel the version of you who no longer chases, how they breathe, how they walk, how they sit. Ask yourself, what would I stop doing if I truly believed I already am the person I say I want to be? Maybe you would stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. Maybe you would stop over-explaining. Maybe you would stop saying yes when your body screams no. So do less of that. Your new identity is not a fantasy, not a vibe, not a vision board. It is a frequency. And when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with that frequency, you stop asking the universe for confirmation. You become the confirmation. You stop looking for the sign. You are the sign. In the next part, we will introduce a simple yet deeply transformative practice that rewires this identity gently and effectively. A daily ritual that requires no hours, no props, no performance, only presence. You will learn to transmit a clean signal from the core of your being, because the quantum field does not need you to convince it. It needs you to become so coherent that it has no choice but to reflect what you already are. And when that shift happens, everything begins to reorganize around you, naturally, effortlessly, instantly. There is a silent, almost imperceptible moment when true change begins. You're no longer doing the ritual to get something. You're no longer saying the affirmation to prove you believe it. You are simply being, not acting as if, but allowing yourself to embody what is already available to you in the quantum field. This is the sweet spot, the point where the field responds even before you realize you've shifted. And it doesn't take hours. It doesn't require a complex script. It begins with a clean, honest, emotionally congruent transmission. We call this the pulse of coherence. It is a 90-second practice that realigns your identity and your signal to match your chosen timeline. Here's how it works. When you wake up, before you pick up your phone, before you scroll your feed, before you consume the past through emails and news, you sit. Eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. What matters is this: you transmit before you receive. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, imagine your chest expanding not just with air, but with a signal. You're not simply breathing, you are transmitting. Now choose 3 words, not long affirmations, but frequencies, states of being you choose to inhabit. Not things you want to have, but states you choose to be. For example, calm, clarity, certainty. Or maybe free, worthy, magnetic. Whisper them, feel them. Let your body's chemistry match those words. Then, for 60 seconds, imagine these frequencies radiating from you like a soft, steady pulse. Not in a pleading way, not in a hopeful way, but in a knowing way. You are not asking, you are not convincing. You are simply declaring, "This is who I am today. This is the signal I am sending. This is the version of me the field will meet." And this is where true transformation happens. Most people finish their morning ritual and 5 minutes later return to their old self. They perform alignment and then by habit return to contraction. But with this pulse, you anchor a new identity before the world has the chance to tell you who you are. You set the tone. You transmit the code. What follows is subtle but profound. Your posture changes slightly. Your breath deepens. Your decisions become clearer. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. Because you are no longer responding to the old field, the one built from your past frequency. You are now walking in a field you created moment by moment. And you didn't chase it. You became the signal it could not ignore. That is the real magic. So here is your invitation. Do this for 5 days, every morning. Before anyone else's energy touches yours, let this be your first transmission. And to anchor it even deeper, right now, right here, mark this moment with your future self. Let them know the signal has changed. Comment below, "I am the signal." Not because you're trying to manifest faster, but because you finally understand the field never needed your effort. It needed your coherence. In the next part, we will explore what happens when you begin living from this coherence throughout the day. We will show you how to stay aligned amid real-world challenges, difficult conversations, decisions, doubts, and distractions, not by fighting them, but by becoming immune to their frequency. Because when you stop chasing you begin collapsing timelines. So you've transmitted the signal. You've pulsed the field with coherence. And for a moment, perhaps 5 minutes, perhaps an hour, everything feels lighter, clearer, more synced. But then something happens. An unexpected email awakens doubt. A traffic delay tempts anxiety. A familiar situation pulls you back into the version of you that you already decided to outgrow. This is the real test. Not a test of willpower, but of energetic stability. Because the quantum field does not test you to punish you. It reflects you to show you where your transmission is wavering. And this is where most people unconsciously collapse back into their old timeline, not because they failed, but because they didn't anchor their new frequency deeply enough to withstand the turbulence of reality. But what if maintaining alignment did not require force? What if it was less about discipline and more about remembrance? Because the truth is, you don't need to fight old patterns. You need only to become more consistent in the signal of your new self. Let's talk about how your frequency is maintained through the small, silent agreements you make with yourself throughout the day. The micro decisions, the subtle responses, the emotional signatures. Most people think manifestation is about big changes, quantum leaps, awakenings, monumental breakthroughs. But in reality, timelines shift when your tiny daily choices stop contradicting your new identity. For example, you receive a message that would normally cause a contraction in your stomach. The old self would ruminate, worry, try to fix something immediately. But instead, you pause, you breathe, you maybe even smile, and you remember, I am the signal. This pause is not passive. It is a quantum
This pause is not passive. It is a quantum recalibration. It tells the field, I no longer react from my story of pain. I respond from my current alignment. Another moment, you feel tempted to rush a process, control an outcome, chase an answer, but you interrupt the pattern. You ask yourself, would the version of me who already has this feel this urgency? And if the answer is no, you embody that no. You slow down. You trust the pulse you sent that morning. You transmit instead of grasping. These moments accumulate. They form a new energetic posture. And posture is power, because posture tells the field, I am safe enough to allow. I am certain enough not to prove. I already am what I was trying to become. And that's when timelines accelerate. Now let's add another layer. To maintain coherence throughout the day, your environment must become a mirror of your frequency, not a constant test of it. This does not mean isolating yourself from the world or avoiding contrast. It means consciously curating the spaces, people, and information that reinforce your chosen state of being. Ask yourself, what kind of music supports the version of me I am embodying? What scent, what texture, what light reminds me that I am safe in the now? Who are the 3 people in my life who speak to my future self, not my past self? And even more subtly, which thoughts will I no longer entertain? Not because they are bad, but because they simply do not belong to this new signal. This is energetic hygiene. It is frequency management, not obsessive, intentional. And if you feel yourself slipping, you return to the breath, not to calm yourself, but to retransmit. You say your 3 words, you pulse again. You become the transmitter once more. Because here's the truth, you are not trying to stay in a high vibration. You are practicing being unavailable for anything else. And over time, it is no longer a practice, it becomes your baseline. You become emotionally immune to chaos, not numb, but anchored, not robotic, but sovereign. And the field begins to bend toward you. It organizes, arranges, delivers, not because you pushed harder, but because you stayed where you once would have collapsed. You remained open where you once would have closed. You remained certain where you once would have doubted. That is what shifts timelines. In the final part, we will close the loop. You will see how surrender is not weakness, but the final phase of transmission. You will learn the paradox of effortless manifestation and why once you stop needing the outcome begins to need you. And now we arrive at the final truth. The moment when all techniques, rituals, and alignment efforts dissolve into something quieter, simpler, and more powerful than anything you could have forced or performed. Because manifestation at the quantum level doesn't happen when you perfect the practice. It happens when you forget the need for the result. When your frequency becomes so whole, so magnetic, so internally coherent that the field has no choice but to mirror you. Not as a reward, but as a physical reflection. This is where surrender begins. And not the kind of surrender people misunderstand, the kind where you give up, lower your standards, or abandon everything out of exhaustion. No, true surrender is a vibrational decision. It is when your state of being is so congruent with your intention that you no longer need to monitor the timeline. You no longer need to scan the field for results. You no longer need to beg the universe to prove it is listening, because you are no longer energetically separate from what you asked for. Surrender in this space is not giving up. It is yielding to the perfection of now. It is reclining into trust while still walking with precision. It is having soft eyes and a sharp spirit. It is calm action with zero tension. And here is the final irony. It is when you no longer need the